Hello, everyone. My name is Monique Brown, and I am the Assistant Secretary for the Arundel County branch of the NAACP. Joining me today is Judge Claudia Barber. Judge Barber is the editor of our branch's newsletter, and she has put together a dynamic newsletter team. And so today we wanted to bring you all some information about our newsletter and some information about some of the articles that are included in it. Judge Barber, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, I am former Administrative Law Judge Claudia Barber, and I am also the first Vice President of the Anne Arundel County branch of the NAACP. So delighted to serve in that position as part of the work that we're doing every day in the community. I launched just earlier last year a newsletter that we started with the fall and winter edition. And we continue to grow, and we have a newsletter team. And I'm thrilled about it because there's so much information to share, and that's what we'd like to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you so much again, Judge Barber. Thank you for taking the time out to be here with us today. I can tell you all that I have read our newsletters, and it's a lot of information, a wealth of information for you all. So I do suggest, when you get a chance, you all check that out. So Judge Barber, I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit of information about your motivation for starting our newsletter?
Yes, two things. One, the purpose and goal of this newsletter is to reimagine advocacy. The second is disinformation. That's that actually motivated me to pursue this project in the way that it is going and the way it has successfully taken off. The disinformation that comes in all forms in mainstream media, whenever you use terminology like defund the police, a lot of times people associate that in an incorrect way with police reform. And to the extent that we are getting the message out that police reform is something that is much, much needed. And for example, there is an opportunity. We see the newsletter as an opportunity to present an edition that we must be closer to sharing more about the difficulty in police misconduct, those cases and the outcomes of those cases. We want to get down to the nitty-gritty, and we want to share as much information as possible so that we can better understand how we can effectuate change for the betterment of the community. The NAACP is not an organization that is anti-police. I believe our president has made that clear in a lot of her messages. In many instances, we love the police when they are about their business, when they are there to protect and serve. However, when you have elements in the police force that are culturally biased towards certain groups of people, especially African American males, we have a problem there. And we want to, again, clear the record and share the information that illuminates the public about police misconduct and how it can be properly handled in the community.
Thank you, Judge Barber. And I like the fact that you brought up disinformation. We know that has been an issue that has been a problem for a while now, and it's important for us as the public to make sure that we tune into certain outlets that are reputable. And I think that NAACP is definitely one of those organizations.
We can't afford to miss opportunities. There's a lot that can be said about opportunities. For example, many may be aware that the famed basketball player Michael Jordan, he will let people know that, yes, people believe he is the greatest player, one of the greatest players that ever lived. But he has candidly said there are other people that beat him in basketball when he played as a youngster. And the difference is the opportunity. He had the opportunity. And because he had the opportunity, he was able to showcase his skills in such a way that he became one of the greatest basketball players that has ever lived. And so it is that importance of seizing on the opportunity to share the message, which is why we want to seize that opportunity through this newsletter to share to the public and the community what we are doing and the effectiveness of what we're doing.
Great. That's so great to hear. So I know you touched a little bit on police reform, and I noticed that in the last newsletter that we published, much focus was also placed on this topic. I know there was several articles written on it. What information was shared during our last newsletter?
During our last newsletter, we gave you a synopsis of all the police reform legislation that passed the General Assembly this year. You know, there's a 90-day session, begins in January, ends in April. And during that 90-day period, a lot of legislation was at the forefront of the topic of police reform and Antoine's Law, which allows now for police misconduct cases that can be a matter of public record by making a Public Information Act request. So that is a huge step forward in the fight for equal justice under the law.
That's great. And we know that our legislation worked very hard to get those bills passed, and we really appreciate it. But yeah, in that newsletter, I know that they give detailed information about what those bills
right. And
include.
in our upcoming edition of the newsletter, we are going to take it further. We're going to take it a step further. We're going to give you a delegation report card on how the legislators in your district voted on specific and key legislation, specifically police reform. Now, there are lots of that. There were thousands of bills that were pending, but hundreds of bills passed. And so we're not going to share every single piece of legislation, but many of the key legislation that was near and dear to the NAACP, that will be shared.
Okay, great. So in addition to that delegation report card, what also can we expect for next month's newsletter?
Well, actually, the newsletter will be the summer edition, and we do anticipate releasing it this month in August. It should be out hopefully by next week, but we're going to share more on the Maryland Freedom Summer Ride that occurred on the Eastern Shore. A large delegation of people participated from many organizations. They drove over to the Eastern Shore and several, the Talbot Boys Monument in Talbot County. They went to Salisbury, Maryland, and they confronted the mayor in Ocean City, Maryland about a recent incident involving police misconduct. So that article will be shared with the community. We also have information on the Juneteenth parade, the fact that it was made law this particular year, and the city of Annapolis was at the forefront with a large, and I mean mega-sized parade that I saw with my own eyes. And we have some pictures of that parade in that newsletter. There's also the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre. The city of Annapolis did have an acknowledgement of that event, and that's in the newsletter. We recently participated in the dedication of a plaque in memory of Leroy Perry, who was gunned down by a county police officer in the 1980s. And this marks the 40th anniversary of his death, but his family is still here, and we also were successful in getting the Anne Arundel Human Relations Commission to unanimously approve that plaque, which will be installed near the Civil Rights Memorial right in Annapolis, Maryland. We also have, again, as I shared before, we're going to present the delegate report card. We're going to show you how each delegate in our districts, delegates, and my district is 32. You might be Glen Burnie, but you're going to see how your delegates voted in the General Assembly. And there's also so much more. I'm just sharing some of the things. We have a memorial tribute to the late Candace Antoine, one of our fond members of the Anne Arundel County School Board of Education, who recently passed. We were sad to learn of her passing, but we don't forget people who are near and dear to the NAACP.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It sounds like there's a lot that we can expect in the upcoming edition. And I know that this was the first Juneteenth celebration that the city of Annapolis held. And there was a lot of work that went into the planning of it. And I heard that it was a phenomenal event.
Yes, there was a pre-celebration, then there was the actual parade the next day. But you know, the county executive had the foresight to make it a county holiday before the president of the United States signed legislation making it a national holiday. Right. So that's huge. It is now a national holiday in the books, part of the historic record, and we captured it. We captured it in our newsletter, and this is an opportunity. Now the way you get it the fastest is if you're a member of the NAACP. It automatically goes to your email address. But the important thing is that we're not shy about sharing what we've done and what we're doing and what we continue to do in the community. And many people are not aware of all of the different committees that are part of Anne Arundel County NAACP. We have a Veterans Affairs Committee. We have a Housing Committee, Fair Housing Committee. We have an Economic Empowerment Committee. We have a Religious Affairs Committee. We have an Education Committee that is a strong advocate for much race-biased incident reporting and what constitutes a race-biased incident. Dr. Thornell Jones and Dr. Mary Dodoni are fierce advocates in that education committee that takes the lead in providing testimony at school board meetings, and we keep abreast of school board activities and COVID-19 changes. So there's a lot to be said about what the NAACP is doing, and I am thrilled at the opportunity. There is no lack of articles at all. There is no lack of articles. And it's a different taste from mainstream media. It's a totally different taste. You're not going to get the same stories that you see in mainstream media because our focus is on what is happening in change. So that's the difference. So that's why we encourage you to also consider getting an ad. Be the first to get an ad in our newsletter because it's worth your time and your value, because our readership has increased. We have our newsletter is so large at this point that it looks almost like a newspaper.
It does.
That we have hard copies now that we can share with you. You can be the first to put an ad. It's right now they're free, but that's changing because we're moving towards companies purchasing ads in our newsletter to showcase who you are and what information you have to share with us. So that's what's on the forefront of what we're doing.
Okay, that's good to hear. So you talked a little bit about COVID cases, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about mask mandates with the cases rising. We also know that the school systems are also reopening soon. So are you hearing any information about this or any information about what's happening at the county council level?
Well, we have been in tune with COVID-19 mandates of mask wearing. Mask wearing is now required in county buildings.
Okay.
But the governor had a press conference, and many of these elected officials, especially the governor and the county executive, hold press conferences to update you on changes. And sometimes that may make changes for the city of Annapolis or another area. So it's important that the public stay abreast. Another hot issue is the moratorium on evictions and what's happening there, because that's been on again, off again, off again, on again. It was supposed to expire this month. Now, there's been more of an extension and more accessibility to legal services to avoid evictions. Landlord-tenant type of evictions, or even mortgage foreclosure evictions. So, those are new developments, and that changes almost every day, if not weekly. So we quarterly produce our newsletter. So this upcoming edition will be the summer edition, and we're going to be right back at it again and prepare for the fall edition within the next 2 months. So it is an exciting project. We have a wonderful team of co-editors that are behind the scenes working with us to make it the best newsletter we can.
Great. So I know you said earlier that the easiest way to obtain a copy of our newsletter is to become a member. So we certainly want to encourage you all to do that. These are some fantastic articles that are written. And again, like I said before, just a wealth of information is presented in it. And it's a good way for people to stay abreast of what is happening in your community. So in addition to becoming a member, is there any other way that people can access our newsletter?
Yes, you can visit our website, Arundel County, NAACP.org, and there is an opportunity for not only for you to join the organization, but also for you to download our newsletters, because there have been several editions since we began this project last year.
Okay. And I think also you said that we may have some hard copies that are available as well.
We do indeed have hard copies, but the exciting thing is that we have topics such as reparations, and we have topics such as the George Floyd verdict and the post-George Floyd verdict, the aftermath of it. And where do we go from here? So we have editorials. We have an open letter to elected officials. So there's much in the newsletter that is newsworthy. We have the response from the president of the NAACP, the Maryland NAACP, on Governor Hogan's pardon of people who were lynched. So that even that article was in the newsletter too. So there is so much that to share, and we want to be able to share it in as many platforms as we possibly can.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Judge Barber, for talking to us about your newsletter that you have created. We really appreciate you taking the time to share this information with us. Remember, for those people listening, if anyone is interested, the newsletter is emailed to the members of our branch. It's released on a quarterly basis. So we certainly want to encourage you to become members of our illustrious branch. And you can also download a copy of the newsletter, an electronic version, from our website at www.ArundelCountyNAACP.org. Thank you again, Judge Barber, and thank you so much to everyone, and you all take care.